Have you ever felt like no matter how much you achieve, it's never quite enough? Maybe you overthink small mistakes. Maybe you put enormous pressure on yourself. Maybe you struggle to relax unless everything is done perfectly. Or maybe you procrastinate because deep down you are terrified of failing. From the outside, perfectionism can look like ambition, discipline, or high standards. But underneath it, there is often something much more painful: low self-esteem. Because many people who struggle with low self-worth don't always appear insecure. Sometimes they appear highly capable, high achieving, organized, even successful. But internally they may feel, I'm not good enough. I can't make mistakes. I have to prove my worth. If I fail, people will reject me. And that's what we are talking about today. My name is Renata Karlinskaite. I'm a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, and I help people to build healthy self-esteem, grow true confidence, and live with resilience. And if low self-esteem and perfectionism affects you personally, I have linked my free self-esteem and confidence affirmations audio in a description to help you start changing your inner dialogue. In this video, we will explore the hidden psychological connection between low self-esteem and perfectionism, why perfectionism is often rooted in fear rather than confidence, and how healing begins. One of the biggest misunderstandings about perfectionism is that people assume it comes from confidence. But psychologically, perfectionism is very often driven by fear. Research in psychology has linked unhealthy perfectionism with anxiety, depression, burnout, chronic stress, procrastination, eating disorders, and low self-esteem. Healthy striving is not the same as perfectionism. Healthy striving says, I want to grow, I want to improve, I'll learn from mistakes. Perfectionism says, I cannot fail, I cannot disappoint people, I must get everything right or I am not enough. And that's a very different emotional experience. And many perfectionists don't realize that what they are actually trying to protect is their self-worth. Because when someone's value becomes tied to performance, achievement, productivity, or approval, mistakes stop feeling like normal human experiences. They start feeling emotionally dangerous. For some people, making a mistake doesn't simply feel uncomfortable, it feels shameful. And shame is one of the deepest emotional wounds connected to low self-esteem. Many perfectionists grow up learning directly or indirectly that love, approval, validation, or acceptance must be earned. Sometimes this develops in childhood through highly critical parenting, unrealistic expectations, emotional neglect, bullying, constant comparison, only being praised for achievements, or feeling like mistakes were unacceptable. And over time, the brain begins to form beliefs like, if I perform perfectly, I will be accepted. If I succeed, I will finally feel worthy. If I make mistakes, people will reject me. And so perfectionism becomes a coping mechanism, a mask, a form of emotional protection. On the outside, a person may appear highly functioning, but internally, they are often exhausted from constantly trying to avoid criticism, failure, rejection, or feelings of inadequacy. This is why many perfectionists live in a constant state of pressure, because their nervous system is operating as though mistakes are threats. And neuroscience helps explain this. When self-worth feels fragile, the brain becomes more sensitive to perceived failure and criticism. The nervous system can shift into a chronic stress response, making perfectionists more anxious, hypervigilant, self-critical, and emotionally drained. And that's why perfectionism can feel so exhausting. You are not simply trying to do well, you are trying to protect your identity and worth. And interestingly, perfectionism doesn't always lead to productivity. In many cases, it actually leads to procrastination. Because when people believe they must do something perfectly, starting becomes emotionally overwhelming. You might think, what if I fail? What if it's not good enough? What if people judge me? So instead of starting imperfectly, the person delays, overthinks, avoids, or endlessly prepares. And then they criticize themselves for procrastinating. And this creates a painful cycle. Fear of failure leads to impossible standards. Impossible standards create anxiety. Anxiety leads to overworking or procrastination. And then comes self-criticism, exhaustion, and temporary relief after achieving something. But the relief never lasts because the deeper belief remains: my worth depends on performance. So the cycle starts again. Another goal, another pressure, another impossible standard. And many perfectionists spend years trapped in this pattern without realizing that underneath it is often a fear of not being enough. Here are some signs that perfectionism may actually be masking low self-esteem. You constantly compare yourself to others. You struggle to feel satisfied even after success. You fear disappointing people. You replay mistakes in your mind for days. Compliments feel uncomfortable or hard to believe. You tie your value to productivity or achievement. You avoid trying new things in case you fail. A rest makes you feel guilty. One small mistake ruins your mood. You feel like an imposter despite your achievements. And perhaps the biggest sign of all, you believe your worth must be earned. That is not healthy self-esteem. Healthy self-esteem says, I have value even when I'm imperfect. I can make mistakes and still be worthy. My value is not dependent on flawless performance. And this is where healing begins. Healing perfectionism is not about becoming lazy or lowering your standards. It's about separating your worth from your performance. It's about learning that being human is not the same as being flawed beyond value. One of the most important things we work on in therapy is self-compassion. Research in self-compassion has shown that self-compassion is strongly linked to emotional resilience, healthier self-esteem, and lower perfectionism. Many perfectionists speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to another human being. The inner critic becomes relentless, but criticism rarely creates lasting self-worth. Compassion does. Another important step is challenging all or nothing thinking. Perfectionists often think, if it's not perfect, it's a failure. But life is rarely black and white. Done imperfectly is still valuable. Progress matters more than perfection. And sometimes healing involves allowing yourself to make small, safe mistakes intentionally, so your nervous system can slowly learn, I can survive imperfection. I'm still accepted. I'm still enough. Because true confidence is not the belief that you will never fail. True confidence is knowing your worth remains intact even when you do. If low self-esteem and perfectionism are patterns you have struggled with for a long time, I have linked my free self-esteem and confidence affirmations audio below to help you begin rewiring your inner dialogue. And for deeper inner work, I have also created a step-by-step course with hypnosis to help you build healthier self-esteem and true confidence at both a conscious and subconscious level. You will find both links in the description. Perfectionism often promises protection. It tells you, if you do everything perfectly, you will finally feel enough. But in reality, perfectionism usually keeps people trapped in anxiety, pressure, exhaustion, and self-criticism, because no level of achievement can permanently heal low self-worth. Healing begins when you stop asking, how perfect do I need to be to deserve love, acceptance, or value? and start realizing you do not need to be perfect to be worthy of love, acceptance, or value. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel. And if this resonated with you personally, feel free to share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video.